everyone, and welcome to another guest expert call here on the Solve Network. My name is Shane, and I will be your host, along with my co-founder, Ben. Tonight's guest expert is Kelsey Wiebe, who is going to be talking about you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And I'm really excited to welcome her back. She's actually a repeat expert on our network here. And last time she talked a lot about how to kind of deal with some of the issues that people have around food. And I think we're going to go a lot deeper tonight. So I'm excited to welcome her back and hand it off to her for a presentation. If you're listening to this later and you'd like to join us so that you can join in the discussion, which we have after the presentation, just get a hold of us at the Solve Network and we'll make sure that you're on the next call. It's a really great opportunity for you to connect with someone you may not otherwise have been able to, but also it gives you a chance to get your questions answered one-to-one from the speaker. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it off to Kelsey. Take it away.
Ooh. All right, well, come on in here. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Shane. Excited to be back here with everybody. Let's see, and I'm just going to, get it back. Hold on real quick, just try and. All right, guys, so welcome. So in today's presentation, I titled it, You Don't Get What You Want, You Get Who You Are. And basically, I wanted to introduce people to my three-step system on really shifting your identity. And because I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, helping you shift your identity so that you can create lasting change in your health and with your weight without feeling like you have to obsess over calories or points or net carbs or all of those things. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by what you want and who you are throughout this presentation. So this training is for anyone, well, anyone at all, but especially if you are someone who may want to lose weight or want to feel more in control with your weight or with your body. If you're sick and tired of feeling stuck in the on the wagon, off the wagon cycle, like a lot of us do, especially around the holidays, which is why I really wanted to come with this presentation now, just because so many of us tend to fall off the wagon in times like maybe when you're on vacation or during the holidays, because we have all these special foods around and we just kind of procrastinate and put off our health and getting back on the wagon or on track for the upcoming new year. And I want to hopefully with this training help you so that you can sustain good health throughout the holidays and still be able to enjoy all of the things. And lastly, this training is for you if you are ready for lasting change so that you can feel healthy, full of energy, and really confident in your own skin. And from here, what you're going to be learning today, we're definitely not going to be doing any quick fixes, nothing about fad diets. They really just don't exist and they're completely unsustainable. And part of the reason that we start feeling on and off the wagon over and over again. But today, I really want to talk to you about the 3 top mistakes that people keep making when they feel stuck in a diet binge or a diet overeat, or again, that on the wagon, off the wagon cycle. Why you're not getting lasting weight loss, or maybe you've lost the weight or regained it, or maybe you just can't seem to feel under control, or just if you're not feeling at your best, if you're not feeling very healthy or like you don't have sustainable energy, and what to do instead, what will get you to the healthiest and most confident version of you. And if you notice, my company is called Rediscover You. I'm not here to list out a whole bunch of external rules and follow this structured meal plan or this exercise routine. My goal is for you to really rediscover who you are and what the best version of you looks like. So on this training, I'm going to be giving you my step-by-step framework on how to forever feel in control of your weight, to feel in control of food without feeling like you have to obsessively track or do anything really kind of excessive. So just so you a little background on who I am. Again, my name is Kelsey Wiebe. I am a holistic life coach. I am a NASM certified personal trainer and a NASM certified nutrition coach. I am also a registered yoga instructor, and I have my bachelor's degree in biomedical science and chemistry. And I've had over 10 years of experience working in the health and fitness industry, and have since gone on to be the founder of Rediscover You, which is my online coaching program, helping people become the healthiest version of themselves. But it wasn't always like this. In my past, even though I was a professional and been an expert in this field for a long, long time, I really struggled. I struggled for nearly 18 years with disordered eating, anywhere from anorexia as a teenager, and then really struggling with binge eating and bulimia as an adult, and just couldn't seem to understand, like, even though I knew all the things, like I knew what I should do, but for some reason I couldn't seem to actually do it. And so while I loved exercise, I could never seem to get control of my nutrition. And it ended up being that I would obsess over eating the right or cleanest foods. I was trying to always always be really restrictive, really clean with my diet, and really try and cut the calories where I could. But then when I was alone, or especially when I was stressed, I would binge, and it was really embarrassing. I felt like a complete hypocrite. I felt really alone. And in all honesty, I felt really broken. Like I felt that there was just something wrong with me. I didn't know why I had this obsession, preoccupation with food. And really a lot of it now I realize is I based so much of my self-worth on how I looked, that I felt that if I wasn't a certain size or didn't look a certain way, that I wasn't worthy of love. I no longer feel this way, but this really was an issue for me. And so now I want to kind of talk to you about some of the issues that we have as far as like mistakes that you may be making, if you feel that you can resonate with that story. So mistake number one that I see a lot of people do, especially when they think that they need to quote unquote be healthy, is they need to do this all or nothing. They need to be perfect, or there's no point, right? They need to go out and run every single day, or do an hour workout every, 5 days a week, or they're like stuck in a life of Tupperware with like chicken and broccoli for the rest of their life. And unfortunately what that does is, number one, if you think that that's the only way to be healthy, you're going to completely procrastinate. You're going to put off any effort to actually get healthy, any effort to actually improve your health, because if you're not doing it all the things, then what's the point? It's also completely unsustainable. And so if there's something unsustainable, if you're doing a diet, such as like completely cutting out sugar, or trying to replace every meal with a meal shake, or trying to do a juice cleanse, or anything that you cannot sustain for the next 6 months, year, 10 years, then there really is, it's unsustainable. And it's just, what's going to end up happening is you're going to feel like a failure. And unfortunately, when we feel like a failure, let's see if can we click? There we go. It leads to a lot of self-sabotage, right? I kind of put this as far as like, if you have a flat tire, instead of getting out and fixing the flat tire because you maybe slipped up or caved in or whatever it is, you feel like a failure. So you get out of the car and you take a knife and you slash the other 3 tires. It makes no sense, but for some reason we just have this mindset that like, I messed up, I failed, I am just going to continue to fail or whatever, or just I'm going to eat everything now, and then I'll start over tomorrow, or I'll start over on Monday, or for the holidays, I'll just start over in 2021, right? Again, this makes no sense. Mistake number 2 that I see a lot of people making is continuously trying to really restrict diet in order to control their food. And I definitely did this. All I kept doing, like all I knew is that I felt completely out of control with food. That I felt like if I wasn't on a diet, if I wasn't trying to either cut out sugar or carbs, or maybe I was trying to do keto diet or Whole30 or whatever it was, if I didn't have some sort of rules to follow, then I felt like I would like lose my shit with food. And actually what ends up happening is it's a pendulum effect. It's the complete opposite. So we end up really restricting, or maybe you're intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, so you're not eating for the majority of the day. And then when you do give yourself permission to eat, you go crazy. There's this whole swing of the pendulum. And a lot of this is like trying to overcorrect binge eating. So a lot of times I used to intermittent fast as a way to overcorrect all the eating I had done the night before. But then I was so hungry by the time I let myself eat the next day that I would end up binging again. And it just became this perpetual pendulum effect. And it finally took me until recently to realize that it wasn't that I needed to stop the binge eating. I needed to stop the restricting. I needed to stop the over dieting. And once I rather than overcorrecting or overreacting to my overeating, once I was able to just like, okay, that happened, whatever, I'm still going to nourish my body. I still deserve to eat. I don't need to excessively exercise to make up for my food. Then I was able to start listening to my hunger fullness cues. Once I was able to eat enough and I wasn't so restricted and feeling so deprived, those cravings and urges to binge diminished. But it just wasn't what I was expecting that I needed to do. Mistake number 3, and this is a huge one, not only when it comes to your health, but I would say in all aspects of life, and that is identifying with failure and really holding ourselves back by our limiting beliefs. This idea, like when I said that I felt broken, I said, I am broken. Like I am a binge eater. I have an eating disorder. I am this. And we as human beings have an innate need to be consistent with how we believe we are, with who we believe we are. So if I say I'm a binge eater, then I'm going to do those things. It's the same thing as if I say I am a procrastinator, right? I'm much more likely to procrastinate because I identify with that thing. Or if you were to say I am a morning person, if you believe you're a morning person, how are you going to act? If you believe that you are a mindful eater, how are you going to act? If you believe that you are an athlete, how are you going to act? And it's so important that we're really conscious about the way that we are talking about ourselves. Do we say that I will always struggle with my weight? This is always how it's been. I've never been able to do this. These kinds of this kind of language, it really impacts our actions and what we do. And this brings me to what I mean when I say you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And so this whole identity-based habits, because I firmly believe this is something from James Clear, his book, Atomic Habits. I love it. I rave about it. I highly recommend you read it. He talks about this idea that every action you take is you casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. And so rather than thinking about what we want, the outside, so first think about what you want. Let's put it in a perspective of a healthy body, right? We want, our desired outcome is to be healthy, have energy, feel in control of our food, all of these things. Well, in order to have that, you need to understand who it is. Who is the type of person you are trying to become? Who already has those results? I also like to think of this as behavior, right? In order to have the things that you want, you must first be the type of person who is capable of having those results. And more than anything, knowing who you want to be, you also need to know why. All right? There may be certain things it may not be very important to you. If it's not important to you, you won't actually do it. It's really important that you understand, why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to be a strong person? Why do you want to be a mindful eater? Why do you want to be an energetic person? Why do you want to be a morning person? Why is that important to you? And when you really understand that, then you'll start acting as if you're already that person and hence get the results. And so this is my framework to rediscover your relationship with food, rediscover your relationship with yourself, and really actually, more than anything, create these habits, casting those votes to become the person who is capable of getting the results you want. And that is to first recognizing your triggers, and we're kind of talking about that, recognizing your cues, your cravings, recognizing your, what are the things that you're reaching for, your behaviors, your thought patterns. Redesign your environment, redesign your social circle, redesign and curate your social media, and refine, because everything comes with repetition, repetition, repetition. So to kind of break this down a little bit, step one, recognize. Until you make, it was Carl Jung, he's a German, I think, psychotherapist. And he was the one who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that is why it is so important for us to first take time to recognize. When we're looking at a habit, right, in order for a habit to be repeated over and over and over again, there's always a cue or a trigger. And so which cause cravings, right? And then it leads to a behavior, which is going to lead to a reward. So let's kind of put this in perspective. So say I'm about to work on an email, and I start getting, the cue is that I'm uncomfortable, right? That I'm frustrated. I don't know how to get the words out. I'm feeling overwhelmed. That leads to a craving for distraction, right? I don't want to be feeling this uncomfortable feeling anymore. So I'm craving distraction. The routine, in order to satisfy that craving, could be reaching for food, maybe reaching for social media. It could be calling a friend. It could be going for a walk. It could be all these things, but the reward is distraction. And so in order for us to change the routine, which could be turning to food or turning to some sort of a negative habit, the first thing we need to do is focus on the cue and the trigger. What do we recognize? How can we become aware of what is cueing our behaviors? Are you eating because you're tired? Are you eating because you're bored? Are you eating because you're stressed or overwhelmed or anxious? Are you eating because you're depressed? Are you eating because you're over restricting or dieting? What is it that is triggering your behavior? And once we understand what our triggers are, then we can go on to step two. Step two is redesigning your environment. So you can either be a victim of your environment or you can choose to be an architect of it, right? And so because far too often, we can set goals for ourselves, but if our environment does not support that behavior, it's unlikely we'll be able to keep up with it and continue it. So think of it this way: make it easy, obvious, and convenient. In no way at all am I saying not to have the cookie. All right. It's like, but having the cookies right out in front of you, our biggest trigger or our biggest sense is sight. And so if you're seeing these foods just laying out on the counter on the table, even if you weren't even hungry, it can trigger hunger. And so it's not that you have to cut out these foods, but instead I encourage you to add in and make the more nutrient dense option easier, obvious, more convenient. When you come home, can you make sure that you cut up raw vegetables so that you have maybe veggies and hummus that are an easy snack? Can you have fruit on the table? Can you do some meal prep or maybe cut up some vegetables ahead of time so making meals at home is more easy, obvious, and convenient? The same thing would be like laying out your clothes the night before, right? If you want to go to the gym, make it easier for yourself that your clothes are laid out the night before. Make it easier that the gym you go to is on your way home from work. Whatever it is, be an architect of your environment. And then be proactive. If you recognize that certain triggers, like overwhelm, like depression, like feeling lonely, especially at night or on the weekends, if those are triggers for you to reach for food or some sort of unhealthy habit that you're wanting to stop, then how can you redesign your environment to be more productive? Can you have your journal nearby so that you can actually start journaling your feelings instead of just trying to numb them? Can you make sure that you have a breath work practice, that when you get cued to that I'm feeling overwhelmed, instead of reaching for something, you just take a moment and pause and breathe? Or maybe you're stressed and anxious and you just need to release energy. Can you have a playlist ready to go that you know the song that just makes you feel good, that you can dance, that it's going to kind of pull you out of that trigger? And then from there, also with our environment, is proximity is power. Who we surround ourselves with has a huge impact on how we act. We as human beings have an innate need to feel a sense of belonging. And so like they've actually found it, I think it was in the British Journal or there was a psychology study done that friends, or if you have a friend who has become obese, regardless of your distance apart from each other, you are 57% more likely to also become obese. And I know that that's a crazy statistic, and I can find the actual statistic and post it later on. But a lot of it is because like we want to belong. And if your friend becomes obese, what are the things and activities that they are doing? If you're friends and the only things that you do together are going out drinking or going out and eating, if that's all you know how to do, then that's going to lead to certain behaviors. Whereas if you have friends who go hiking or who like to work out together, or who do like big conventions or any sort of mindset work or journaling, any sort of those things, that's when that becomes more normal behavior, then those are the behaviors that you're also going to adopt. And this is also really, really important, especially now. I know there was a Netflix special about a social media, the social dilemma. And it's really important, and I talk about this with my clients, that you become an architect of your social media feed, because it is an echo chamber. And so be really conscious. Is your social media full of things that are making you compare yourself, making you feel less than, or making you feel bad about yourself or negative in any way, shape, or form? Or is it uplifting? You get to be the architect of what you are consuming. So be conscious of it and redesign it as needed. And it's step 3, not step 2. Step 3 is refine. And as Tony Robbins says, repetition is the mother of skill. Or excellent is something that is done repeatedly, right? It is therefore a habit. The biggest thing I want you to understand with the refining phase is neuroplasticity. And I love this. I'm such a geek. Anyone who's in neuroscience, this is amazing stuff. Hebb's law, whatever fires together, wires together. So just think about, like, honestly, whenever you're emotionally eating, right? Just recognize that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just become a habit. That's it. It's just a habit that this is what you do. When you feel this emotion, you eat, right? And so all you need to do with this ability for neuroplasticity is to create a new pathway. So I like to think of it like a pathway like this, that honestly, this has just become the neural pathway that we have used. It has the least amount of resistance now because we've used it and repeated it over and over and over again. Think about your drive home from work. Think about tying your shoe. Think about how you brush your teeth. We don't even think about these things anymore. They're just part of who we are because we've created these neural pathways. So now we don't have to put energy into thinking about how to do it. It's the same thing with any habit, with any behavior that we want to adopt. So again, if all you want to do, rather than emotionally eating, the moment you get the cue that you're feeling anxious, if you could instead go for a walk, or if you could instead journal how you're feeling, then you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. That's going to become your new pathway. That's going to become your pathway of least resistance and just your go-to. It just becomes who you are. And that can be done for anything. We are just so powerful if we understand this. And again, this comes down to us remembering that we're not failures. That's the whole reason why it's refining. It's taking the time to recognize what didn't go well and celebrating what did go well. Because, right, our brain, wants reward. Our brain wants pleasure. So instead of beating ourselves up and focusing on all the things we've done wrong and focusing on all the things that we messed up on, we instead really need to put all of our focus on all the things we did right and all the things we did well, and celebrate it, get excited about it. If there's a moment that you didn't binge, maybe, or you put you almost started to and then you stopped, even if eventually you do end up binge eating or emotionally eating later on, you need to focus on the fact that you were conscious of the behavior and you stopped for a little bit. Because that's when you start repeating it. And the next time it'll be even easier. And the next time it'll be even easier. Where focus goes, energy flows, results show. And too often we put way too much of our thought process on everything we've done wrong, on all the ways we failed. And instead we absolutely need to put much more attention and focus and energy on all the things we're doing right, so that our brain knows that it is worth repeating. And again, this is where my community, or being part of a community that is going to support you and celebrate those little wins with you and make that behavior normal and exciting and awesome, that's what we need as human beings. And so just a couple things just about my program, a testimonial from one of my, couple of my girls, Kiki. Like one of the biggest things for me, she had been binging and emotional eating for years, and she felt so out of control with food. And she realized that so much of it came from her not having a love for herself. And for her to be able to leave my program loving herself unconditionally. And I'm not saying it's always perfect, but you recognize that you are so worthy right now, regardless of how you look, regardless of what your health is, regardless of what your financial situation is, regardless of your relationship, you are perfect and beautiful just the way you are right now. And you are worthy and deserving of love and feeling cherished. Another one of my girls, again, felt completely food obsessed. It was completely consuming every aspect of her life. She couldn't stop. Like the moment she would try and like give herself unconditional permission with food, but she still felt like the moment that she didn't track every calorie or every net carb or whatever it was, that she would gain weight. She was terrified that she would gain weight. And it took up every crevice of her headspace. And through this program, she was able to become an intuitive eater, to really reconnect and listen to her body. She was able to learn to love and accept her body. She was striving for other things and able to put her headspace and her brain power to other more important things that really mattered to her in her life. And more than anything, she was able to enjoy her life. And this last one is from my client. I don't know if you can see it or not.
I can
see it, but there's no volume.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. She's basically saying she had done Weight Watchers, she had done running, she had done all these things that had worked for a little bit, but the weight always came back, or she always then would just again feel like a failure, or she felt like she couldn't eat the same way as her family. Like she had to cook like multiple meals, right? So she had to make the food for her family and then make it for her. And now she's been able to learn that actually she can make delicious, wholesome meals for everybody. She doesn't have to follow these food rules, these really strict food rules, that it really just comes down to being more mindful and really listening to her body, recognizing what her body needs, and that it doesn't have to be extreme. It just starts with little tiny habits, one little bit at a time, until it just becomes who you are. And that brings me to my final little call to action. For the last week of October, right before the holidays start, right before Halloween kicks off, when you know all the Halloween candy is going to be all around, and then we've got Thanksgiving, and then we've got Christmas and all the things, I really want to help give you and help you understand what are the top 4 foundational habits to health that I teach all of my clients in my program. I mean, opening up for everybody. We're doing a 5-day live challenge. So every night before, I'll be dropping off a daily challenge for the day. And then at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be hopping on live. It might even be via Zoom. just to kind of chat about how the challenge, what the challenge for the day, how it's going, what you've learned about yourself, how you're redesigning your environment so that you are able to make it just a part of who you are. And again, these are small, little, tiny, sustainable changes that you can learn now and carry you on all through the holidays and beyond, so that you can actually enjoy the holidays without feeling guilt, without feeling any shame, and just actually be present. So if you want to join me for that, I'd absolutely love for you to come on aboard. It's the 5-day Healthy Habits Bootcamp. And again, starting August 26th, our first live will be at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I would really hope to see you guys there. And that's it. August, did I say August or October? October.